So it's a good afternoon from the UK. I am Liz. This is Ladies Go Live, Series 3, Your Wellbeing. I'm talking to the guy I inspire since my early days, Ric Moylan. I know you hate it when I say that.
Well, I do, but then you just said you inspired me, I think. So that was better. That was better. That's how it is now.
Yeah, we'll flip it. It goes both ways. But
Absolutely.
That's how a journey goes. Of course, I've known you for, oh my God, 7 years?
Yeah.
So obviously, Ric, I knew you back in the early days. You came and speak. Tell us more about what you actually are. Joe's joined us. Good morning to you, Joe, from the US. Tell us all about the fantastic things you do, because it's phenomenal, in my opinion.
Thank you. You know, I coach people. That's what I do. I come like yourself, Liz, which is how we met, isn't it? We both come from a background of health and fitness, personal training world, and so forth like that. And yeah, I was like many young guys and girls. I was young then, definitely. I just love sport, you know, and so I really wanted to get into working in sport. I always wanted to be a sports, you know, an athlete, whatever. And then when that didn't sort of happen for me, my dream was to always pursue working in sport, which I've done, and I've spent about 12, 14 years, I think, doing exactly that, because I was doing some of that when we met as well. And yeah, you know, I've been very lucky. I've managed to travel the world and work in, you know, pro boxing and tennis and football and loads of different sports, racing, driving, and all kinds of craziness. And you know, the thing about it is that the athletes are people, and I whilst I came into it as a sports scientist, I think originally, I learned more, and I realised that, you know, the higher up you go in terms of professional sport and the stress and the financial side of it and all that kind of stuff, that fundamentally athletes are people, and they have hopes and dreams and fears like everybody else. So I then started learning more about that kind of stuff. And then as I became a father and all that, I wanted to be a bit more based at home. And this is where I am now. Coaching people.
But the fact is, what I've always loved is your straight talking. It's like, this is how it is. And you say athletes are people, but we see it transpose. You see these quotes like, the athlete will put in the dedication to their training, they focus because their goal is the gold medal or their place in the team, or, you know, whatever it is they want to achieve. But that mindset is exactly what we have in business. So it's life skills you teach, really.
100%. You know, I remember when I first sort of got into doing keynote speaking, you know, in corporate, which is what I do a lot of now, as you know. And I remember I was approached actually by a friend, like a lot of things I've done, or I've just kind of just done them, you know. I've just sort of found my way. And when this chap asked me to do a keynote for a huge sales team, and it was the first one I'd ever done, and I was kind of thinking, what am I going to speak about? You know, how does a sales team doesn't want to know about VO2 maxes, or, you know, or any of that boring geekiness that I do, you know, and I just sort of stepped back and I thought, well, hang on a minute, sport and business massively crosses over. They're target driven, they're emotion driven, it's based on teamwork, it's based on, you know, a number of things that ultimately cross over. So I kind of went into this talk, and instead of talking about the geeky sports science stuff, I spoke about exactly like you've just said, you know, how athlete preparation, you know, going into a big event is no different to pitching for a. Oh, is Liz gone? Don't know if I'm on my own now. And I've lost Liz. I think I have. I'll carry on.
It just kicked me out. That was quite
interesting. I was like, what do I do?
It just something went wrong.
I thought, I just said to the camera, I was like, have I lost Liz there? And then I could see me, the live sign was still on. I was like, Anyway, I thought someone was winding me up then. Basically, sport is like pitching for a contract or you know, or a new client or whatever, or getting kicked out of a live show when you're not the host. It's exactly the same.
Or when you are the host and you're like,
then you become the host, and you know, you've got to adapt all those principles, all those buzzwords. You've got to adapt. You've got to crack on. I'm right. Maybe we'll talk about this in a minute, but I'm writing a book about what I call a lonely walk, which is where a boxer walks to the ring on their own, and sales and meetings and corporate is like that, and work is like that, and that's exactly how I felt then when I just saw my head just pop up on the screen on my own.
I have to say, when it happened to me on a podcast, I literally got kicked off one, and I stood again, oh my God, because I get serious stage fright, and you know, and I've got sort of over it, but I was like going, okay, guys, please talk to me, begging people, you know, it's quite entertaining, but it's also a bit of a shock, and you know, those sort of shocks happen in life. You walk in, you're prepared for that business meeting. You walk in going, right, this is what I'm going to deliver, and someone goes, no, this is how you're going to do it, and you go, oh. Hang on a second. I prepared a 10-minute talk and you want to give me 20 minutes, and you want me not to do this and you want to do it in here, and you know, anything can throw in your way. And it's that ability to, like you said, that flexibility of that mind to actually stay top of your game.
Yeah, but you know, behavioral flexibility, you know, athletes all of them, some of them are creatures of habit. And we know about habits and how habits, you know, build over days and they lead us to where we want to be. And that's great. But, you know, competitive sport doesn't always follow the rules. And you know, sometimes these rules just get absolutely ripped up and thrown out the window. And I think that's exactly the same in business. You know, I mean, if we'd have done this call 18 months ago, Liz, when we were all doing our projections and how our year was going to be ahead, well, we didn't really see this coming, you know, and you know, as I say, and I'm, you know, for those who are kind of listening or maybe watching, I am quite animated with my hands, aren't I? Maybe that is the old sort of martial arts training, but we have to roll with the punches, and that sometimes it's not about necessarily just being great. Of course, we've all got to be good and we've all got to develop. Sometimes it's your ability to get up off the canvas when you've took that punch that you didn't see. Sports, you know.
I've actually started controlling the way I use my hands because I've been doing my public speaking practice and that. So I'm actually trying not to be, because I'm like you. I'm very like, and you look at this, and it's like this, and you go like this, and everyone's like, I'm watching what you're doing, not listening to you.
Yeah.
And so that ability, this is again, like you said, last 15 months, what have we done? We've had to go, oh shit, this doesn't work anymore. You know, and first off, we were like, a couple of weeks, you know, within 3 months, we'll be back, you know, we'll be fine. Things will be open. And then another month, and then another month. And we're like, oh my God, it's been 12 months.
Yep.
And we're not out of it yet.
Absolutely. And then, you know, keep my hands still. And then a whole new set of challenges are going to present themselves, and you know, and again, it's something I say a lot. It's a metaphor I use a lot. Is that we're all kind of surfing through life. You know, sometimes the waves are not that big. Sometimes they're quite small. Other times they are, you know, riptides, whatever they're called, tidal waves, absolute tsunamis. And I think we're in the midst of one right now, but we can't control the waves. We can only control our ability, can't we? Our ability to surf and our skills. That's all we can do, and our ability to adapt. Yeah.
And we're naturally designed to adapt. Anyway, that's actually our natural ability, natural instinct. That's what we're skilled at.
Yeah. Evolution, that's us, isn't it? You know? So, yeah.
And of course, your mind's your greatest tool. Like your mind will quit before you know, like obviously, let me get my words straight now. So your mind is obviously your strength. because your body will keep going further than your mind. You always think you can't go that step further, or that your mind's what pulls you through. So it's that sort of, it's that leverage. It's the difference between actually that extra step and not. Because if you believe the negatives, you will hold yourself back. If you sit there and talk yourself into it, you will step forwards. So what would be your sort of, I say, advice or sort of way to sort of approach that? Because if you find yourself sort of always hitting that brick wall and not stepping forwards, what's one thing you would do to help train your mind to be forward thinking?
I think you've got to investigate, and you've got to, going within is actually not very comfortable for a lot of us. I got into working more as a mindset and performance coach because sport and my job required that, and it demanded it. But actually, if you go deeper than that, well, there's actually a history of mental health problems in my family. And so therefore, from a young man, I'd experienced seeing people, have the highs and lows of mental health. It's not comfortable going inwards, but when there are blockages, we have to be, first of all, open and receptive to even exploring why. So what I always say, these two key facets I'm looking for with a client or with a group of clients, it's understanding and acceptance. And I think acceptance is the first one for me. Of course, a crude example, within people can have medical issues and all kinds of stuff and so forth like that. But if you're particularly overweight, it's fairly common in my career to have the statement said to me, well, I eat well.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is, to gain acceptance, we have to look at that rather than you just sort of saying, well, I can't stand why I'm overweight because I eat well. Well, let's look at what that really, really looks like, and let's explore it. You have to be able to then accept that maybe you don't eat well.
And the biggest one I get is they don't actually eat enough. They think, I'm only eating this.
Absolutely. A very close friend of mine, I just had the exact conversation literally a few days ago. But the whole point is, you have to be able to accept that you may not be right, or that there may be some changes that need to be made, and change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I look for understanding and acceptance. When there's blockage, I look for those two key things. We try and, learn. We try and get as much information as we can. We try and understand that, let's say for, somebody with food, for argument's sake,
yeah,
is there, emotional reasons, which is usually 99% of the time. Okay, so what are those emotional reasons that why we're turning to food for, comfort or for this or for whatever? So we're gaining some sort of understanding. And then if we get some acceptance as well, I think that then allows us to put the necessary interventions into place to get past the blockage. I think if we haven't got understanding and acceptance, it's this like negative feedback loop where we just keep going round in a circle, and we'll get some progress and then we'll taper off, and then we'll end up right back where we started.
Yeah. Just say a quick hello to Paul, who's joined us. So thank you for logging in. Obviously, do fire over your questions, guys. If you have any, I'm going to be interrogating Ric for another about half an hour or so. But of course, with that, excuses. So you create, I'm sure you've heard this one, I'm fat and overweight, but they don't want to commit to losing weight because when things go bad, they can blame being overweight. Well, it's fine because I'm overweight. It's that sort of excuse system. How does that fare with, when you're sort of getting people to accept things? Do they find is barriers a big blockage, or do you find that further on down the line normally?
Sorry, can you just repeat the last bit there, Liz? It just went a bit grisly, the video. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I just said, obviously, with barriers and blockage, do you find it when you start acknowledging the acceptance of what's going on, or do you find it when you start delving in and digging deeper?
The natural default is like you say, is, I think could really go off on one here, but I think we're being more conditioned as a society more and more now to To that when something's going great, that it's our doing and it's our fault, and we celebrate and look at me, I'm amazing. Yet when things aren't going so well, it's an external factor. It's any one of 50 different things. So the natural kind of, for me, whenever I'm trying to work towards acceptance with somebody, there generally is always a pushback. Now, for me as a coach, the key skill for me is not giving them the answers, but is ultimately just trying to get them to pass what we call the mirror test, as you know, where they give themselves the answers, whereby I'll simply probe and continue to probe and continue to ask the right questions till they get to a point where they have to face the reality of that and the reality of the situation. I think there's always a pushback. We're conditioned now for comfort. We're conditioned for abundance. We're conditioned, that hardship is not necessarily a good thing. And what I try and do is I constantly got fixed in my mind that, are they in a place of acceptance? If they're not in a place of acceptance, I will continue to work and I'll continue to work. And just because you're in a place of acceptance doesn't mean you stay there. We're all influenced, aren't we? We're all, our moods, our states, they change at any given time, So, there's always a pushback. Like you say, I eat well. I don't understand it, and it's my job then to what I do. I work in tennis, but I just play a game of tennis. I knock the ball back. So tell me what eating well looks like. Okay, so if we're we're eating great, talk to me about your energy levels. Let's go through your sleep last night. And I don't really give them the solutions. I just simply ask the questions. And what you'll often find is, I did eat this and I did eat that. Oh, okay.
Or that, I didn't realise that.
Yeah. I mean, we had one within, and this is no different for athletes. And I work with, general population as well, in my programs now and all that kind of stuff. But, that athlete gave us a food recording, a food diary, whatever you want to call it, literally a few weeks ago, massively under eating. Yeah. Holding body fat. And, it was kind of like, okay, well, let's take a look at what you do. And this athlete, just basically gave us half a food diary.
After being top level myself, I'm like, oh no. No. And this is the thing as well, because how many times do you find people lie when they first start out?
It's a lack of acceptance. Nearly all the time. I think it's over. I've been doing this for 20 years now, all in. And I think it's probably getting worse. I think as there's more information out there as well, and there's more, I think generally we kind of knew what we knew. And historically, people, let's say their career, they would work on their career, but before the internet and all that kind of stuff, they didn't have that much access to have a wealth of info or a wealth of people's opinions. And people, that is everywhere now, isn't it? There's opinions everywhere, there's info everywhere, and people will lie. People will, because again, going back to what I said before, that's a comfort, isn't it? I'll tell the coach what I think they want to hear.
Yeah.
I'll assume and mind read what I think the coach wants to hear. And I'll assume that the coach does want to hear that, and therefore will be accepting of it, and therefore not notice that I'm actually lying.
And the fact is, we become a coach because we've done that shit before.
Absolutely. And I just call bullshit on it, and I just say it straight. I'll just say, why don't you sort of stop wasting my fucking time, and let's just have an open and honest conversation.
Yeah, my favorite line is, yeah, right. And apparently I have a look. So I'm just like, and people say, yeah, you have this look. And I'm like, what do you mean? And there's look as in, I know you're bullshitting. There's a look as in, don't even push it. And a look as in, you really dare? And I was like, okay, all right. And apparently they said, yeah, the really dare they've not had like once in 12 months they've seen. Oh, one of my clients told me this. I was like, okay. But apparently I have these looks. And so I can say very little and just.
Like the death stare, is it, Liz, then, yeah?
Apparently. So one time, yeah, probably. But it gets the message. It's a case of they just know, you know, in some ways, I'm in some ways opposite to you because I'm very passive, you know, very like, okay, you carry on, you do your thing. But then they say something, I'm like, not interested. If you're going to lie, you know, is it? And then my favorite line is that what I showed you?
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, I you know, and I accept this. I'm not sometimes for everybody, you know, obviously. I mean, you know, and believe it or not, I do have a softer side, Liz. I do have a softer side, you know.
I believe this.
I do have a softer side. And of course, that is the skill of coaching, isn't it? The coaching is you know, he's ultimately trying to help people get the best out of people. Of course, I can be, you know, quite coarse around the edges, quite rough around the edges, and we'll just kind of, you know, steam in. But then equally, you know, I do want to get the best out of the people I work with, and if that does require a softer approach, then I will do that. But then, like you say, if you know, if you get that scent of BS, then you know I'm going to kick some ass. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing. You just need to balance. So, quick hello. We've got Barbara. Got a few guys joining in all over LinkedIn, obviously from Japan. Hello. And our resident DJ of Ladies Go Live, DJ G. So all checking us in. Thank you, guys. Obviously, if you've got any questions, do fire them over because, you know, we're talking mindset, performance mindset, and business. So it all connects and how the mind is a powerful tool. So how would you say, if I'm coming to you and I'm in business, what sort of signs or symptoms, we can use both signs or symptoms, if I'm not on top of my game, I think I am, what sort of things would you find become obvious? What sort of thing, actions, or is there anything that in your experience that you've sort of come across?
Well, the big what's the word I'm looking for? Challenge is stress, isn't it? And you know, business is stressful, and you know, you might be running a team, or you might be running a department, or you know, trying to hit targets, or dealing with a disciplinary situation, or involved in a purchase of a new business, or whatever. But it's stressful, and I think for me, there's one of the big challenges that I've noticed, you know, if you're looking at managers and owners and CEOs and all that kind of stuff, and senior leadership teams and people like that, SLTs and whatnot, is that the challenges are basically greater than they've ever been. Yeah, you know, the challenges are they need to earn more money, they need to grow business, they need to hit targets. The challenges are greater than they've ever been, and of course now the employment law is more in depth than it's ever been. You've got to communicate in a certain way. You've got to follow processes to look after your staff, manage your staff. You are literally challenged in 100 different areas. Now, you know, I don't see that slowing down anytime soon, and I don't see it changing. So therefore, we have got to give ourselves the right tools for the job. And one of the key, you know, key consistent things that I see across, you know, those sort of leadership and management roles, let's say, is that the guys and girls I work with, they don't have the tools for the job. Now, they may go on a management course, they may go on a communication skills course or some leadership, but what about your health? What about what I call Principle 1 in my programs, a foundation of health? Now, I work with fighters and I work with, you know, predominantly boxers, but you know, even a tennis player or whatever, we wouldn't just get that guy or girl and you know, give them a course in tennis and then throw them into a high pressure, high demanding situation, because physically and mentally they would not be able to cope. Yeah? Just like a fight, we train them for a period of weeks and months, if not longer, before exposing them to that situation. Now, when people come to me and they say, I'm stressed, stressed and I'm struggling to cope, and my head's splitting with all the things I've got going on. I say, well, ask yourself why you can't cope. And it's because they don't have the tools for the job. So, when you delve deep, as there's reliance on, external de-stressing. Some people train, but again, then maybe some of them sometimes train too hard, but then it's drinking, sleep is terrible, sat up at night working on laptops or taking laptops to bed. There's only two things you should be in bed doing. One of them sleeping, and the other one it's a bit early in the day to talk about. You should not be working in your bed. And that's the whole point. What I'm saying is the demands are going up.
Yeah.
Like fighting a faster, stronger opponent, but you're not doing any speed work yourself. You're not doing any excuse me, my phone's kicked in. Sorry there, Liz. You're not doing any speed work yourself. You're not doing any strength work yourself. You've got to work on yourself. You've got to sharpen your tools to be able to cope with the demands that you're facing now, which are different to what they were 30 years ago.
Yeah. It's the same as going to the gym to de-stress, but stand there texting or emails, or going for a walk to get out of the house, but then making your calls as you go on that walk. You've not switched off. Or, I spoke to the EMF gal last week. We're talking about EMF radiation. And of course, so even just having, your laptop, even if you just did a couple of emails, you now obviously blue light, EMF radiation, working, no separation. And that's the key thing is we talk about prepping yourself, but you need to separate yourself from everything you do so that you can be better at everything you do, because that's your time.
Yeah, and absolutely. And having those boundaries in place and remembering that, Rick and Liz are people, that we're not just a parent or a partner or a business owner. We're a person as well. And if you look at it scientifically, and this is where, science does help as well, as and nutrition helps and all those kind of things, you're spending all day in fight or flight, all day in a sympathetic nervous system, on the go, fast twitch, moving, reacting. And then all of a sudden you suddenly expect to switch into a parasympathetic nervous system, go to sleep, relax, chill out. And then you wonder why you can't do it. So for me, like you would have a strategy for your marketing, like you would have a strategy for your sales, like you would have a strategy and a development plan for a member of staff to progress them through into an SLT role or something like that. Well, there's got to be strategies in place for you to be able to cope with the demands of this world we live in now. And I think fundamentally, and I suppose this is across the board actually, life has changed, the demands have changed, our digital exposure is higher than ever. So what are we doing? For every action is a reaction. What are we doing to counterbalance and bring some equilibrium to our life?
Yeah, I remember being young and just having my first phone that only did 10 text messages, only stored 10. And, you could make a call or you could text. There was no internet. Now we carry our mini computers. Yeah. And it's the field. And as well, there's very much a now. There's very impatience because you're connected. They think, oh, you're connected now. It's like, hang on a second. Like now I transformed, when I went self-employed, I transformed my business at one point because I was always corporate. I'm going to, as soon as I go in, check my emails, see what I need to do, so I went, hang on a second. I work for myself. My emails are important. I will do them today, but that's not what needs to be done first. I start my day with what I need to do first.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, and again, I go back to what I said before about asking questions, the historic 9 to 5, for argument's sake. And as we migrate back into offices, which I believe we will, and I believe it is a good thing to what's the word I'm looking for, to hybrid, let's say. But I would say to people, okay, so you start at 9 o'clock. Yeah. I said, why not 9:05? And then I'd get, I don't know, because I start at 9 o'clock. Okay, so why not 9:05? Yeah. I don't know. I finish at 5. Why 5? I don't know. And you know, it's looking at these cultures, it's looking at these habits, and it's looking at it and saying, listen, ultimately, what we're there to do in business, in sport, it's what I call, it's under the banner of performance, whether that's in, you know, win things or make more money or whatever. But we've got to have the right strategies in place to do that. Okay, I was brought up in a very working class upbringing. That was what we always was called elbow grease, you know, working hard, you know, work. But actually, we can work a lot smarter. And actually, if you do get up, like you say, Liz, and prioritize yourself and prime yourself for the day, physically, mentally, you know, and get your body moving, you know, there's a saying, sitting is the new smoking. The links between excess sitting down and inflammation, not just in terms of the biomechanics, your back, your knees, your joints, your neck, but also at cellular level, you know, also your ability to think and function. So if it's a complete paradox, and it's a complete nonsense to just work, when actually, if you give yourself a little bit of time, you'll be super sharp, super efficient, and do a lot more effective work in a far smaller minutes and hours window, you know.
Yeah, become much more productive in that time you're working.
Absolutely. You know, that's where, again, sport and business are the same. If you play football, you're there to win football matches. You know, you don't get points for who's run the furthest on the pitch. You get points for who scored the most goals. And business is the same. It is about results, financials, performance.
Well, DJG says this needs to be taught in schools. And we've got, obviously, Kevin has just joined in, says, just jumped in, interesting perspective of a long-distance runner who's using the London Marathon this year after the mindset used towards the preparation. Mine's more powerful than my legs. I'm actually, it's white on black for me, my dyslexia. This is actually quite hard.
I got it. I'll jump in if you don't mind. I agree about schools, by the way. Again, society has changed. I've got an academic background. I'm not a natural academic. It's something that doesn't particularly come easy to me. But, you know, I went through, obviously, GCSEs, A-levels. A-levels just weren't for me at all. Really, really didn't do well with them, and then found my way by doing MVQs and vocational stuff and whatnot like that. Eventually did my degree, eventually did my master's degree. So I am an academic, but again, the dynamic has changed. And I mean, as you know, as I've talked about, I'm a big fan of combat sports. I hugely believe in combat sports. I hugely believe in, I think they would be a game changer if they were brought into schools. I might be going off on one here a bit, but, you know,
with you.
in terms of discipline and in terms of friendship and togetherness and actually having a confrontation, but not needing to go to the extremities of knife crime or whatever. So I build, you know, I do believe that the school curriculum, my best friend is a head teacher as well. This is a debate we have a lot. I believe it's not fit for purpose anymore. And that's the same with, you know, doing the same thing. What's that old saying? Do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. Definition of insanity. Yeah. You know? You've got to adapt.
But you said before about how like boxing and knife crime are related. So the fact that we see when we're allowed to sort of box and have these areas where we can release that tension, that there's a drop in knife crime.
It's absolutely proven. I work with the police. Okay, I work with the police, and it's absolutely proven that in areas, in urban inner city areas where there is a successful martial arts clubs, there is a reduction in overall crime, a reduction in youth crime, reduction in knife crime. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying that within the workplace we should go having a fight and stuff like that, but there is nothing wrong with having what I call a courageous conversation. There's nothing wrong with, you know, again, you know, rather than texting or whatever, having a conversation. And I think our children, as we bring them through, teaching them about assertiveness and teaching them control and so forth, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So regarding the marathon, could you bring it up again, Liz? Are you able to do that? Or I've just run short 700 miles this year. My last run was Wednesday of 19 miles. The mind is more powerful than my legs, as it is this that drives me on when the legs tell me to quit. So training the mind to be ready for the run. And I know it will need to be in the best possible place come marathon day. Absolutely. Consider, what I would say is the mind is a muscle and can be trained. Yeah. So therefore, we train our legs. We put the miles in. We're certain that if we don't put the miles in, we're not going to be able to do a marathon. That's one thing we're certain of. If you only train for 5 miles in the legs, your legs will only take you 5 miles. Well, your brain is exactly the same. Now, your brain's primary role is to keep you safe. So the minute you start pushing to extremes, which a marathon is, you start going to 17, 18, 19 miles, 20 miles. The minute your body is struggling to clear lactic acid, when you're reaching that lactate threshold, your brain's primary role is to keep you safe. Okay? So automatically, you will want to stop. Your brain will say, I am done. I'm stopping. Now, a bit like the swimming principle, progression has to be gradual. If we get somebody who can't swim and throw them into the deep end, we will not get progression. All we'll do is massively, increase fear, and you'll get that freeze principle that we panic, don't we? And we stop. Yeah. So what I would say, and if the person who wrote that is looking for advice, is that the brain, Kevin, sorry.
You just fired this one up as well. So consider what would say the best strategy for the approaching in the morning.
Well, what I was about to say is that the brain's got to be trained. It's got to be trained. I would, first and foremost, I'm sure he probably does this anyway, but I would keep a diary of not just training times, but emotions, how you feel, your thoughts. Notice when there's key triggers, because, the old knowledge is power thing. There will be certain points, 14 miles, 17 miles, 18 miles, where the brain wants to override and go, right, I'm stopping. I want to keep you safe. And again, when you can understand and accept that, okay, this is my brain telling me that it wants to stop. Actually, my legs can carry on. Actually, my energy levels are good because my hydration's good. My electrolytes are good. I've taken on some sugars. I've used the right tools for the job. You can breathe, let it pass, and say to yourself, this is my brain trying to keep me safe. And all I then need to do is focus not too far ahead. It's just focus another, 2-3 minutes. That is it. And small steps equal big journeys, don't they? So if you can progress 2 or 3 minutes that day, use the same principle, repeated 2 or 3 minutes, before you know it, you've added considerable distance on before you, and your brain then becomes used to, actually, your brain goes, no, I am safe. I'll allow things to continue. And what was the second bit there, Liz? Sorry.
Well, you said, what would you say the best strategy for the morning?
Confidence is a byproduct of preparation. I wrote this on a post yesterday. Probably share it later. Confidence is a byproduct of preparation. When you're there on the morning, you've got to remember one key word: trust. Okay, and it's trust in the process. It's trust in your training. It's trust in the work that you've done. The opposite of trust for an athlete, particularly a boxer walking to the ring to have a fight as they're moving their hands and so forth like that, the opposite of trust is regret. And when they're walking to the ring with regret, it's too late. Yeah. So you have to trust your training, but therefore, reverse engineering that, you've got to do the training. Yeah. You can't manifest a marathon. Anyone who's done one will tell you that.
I tell you, when I did my half marathon, I didn't train for it. I'd done a lot of strength training, a lot of 6 milers, 8 milers. I hadn't done a half. I hadn't done over 8 miles. In fact, I don't think I did over 6. I just went, I'm doing this. I can do this. I'll see how I go. I got halfway and I went, you're averaging 8 to 8.5 minute miles. You're doing fair. Got to mile 10. I twisted my knee and I went, it's fine. You're over halfway. I'm not quitting now. Yeah. I got to mile 12 and I was in pain and I was like, I am not quitting this close to the end. I can smell the end. And it was, the fact is, in my mind was like, but you hurt, you know, you can't really walk. It's more painful to walk than run. I went, then you run to the end. And it was literally that sort of mindset.
You made a deal with yourself, didn't you, mentally? And what you did was you set some boundaries, you know. And a friend of mine was in the SAS, and he made a mental deal with himself on selection. And he said to himself, this was his absolute baseline deal: I will only quit if I have a broken leg. And, you know, we all know the power of self-talk and so forth like that. It's sometimes easier said than done. But he took all the skin off his feet during selection, but he was able to continue because he'd made a deal with himself. And therefore, okay, because we're all faced with those key pivotal moments where we have to then bite down, as I say. Boxers wear a mouth guard, don't they? Have to bite down on their mouth guard and answer their own mirror test question. And if you are able to find a little bit within yourself, you know, my mate Gaz was able to find a little bit in himself. He passed his mirror test, and it was something he was able to revert back to, because he'd said to himself, only quit if I've got a broken leg. He was able to pass his mirror test and move forwards. I was working with somebody, and I'm still working with somebody who's doing 12 challenges over 12 months. And some of them are going to get physically quite tough towards the end. Yeah, this chap had a huge fear of height skydiving. Yeah. Now, we did a little bit of work and whatnot like that. And what his natural default was I'll do the skydive later on. And I was like, no, you're going to do it near the beginning, because when you get past this challenge, this will provide you with the foundation to show you that mentally you can do anything. And he did it yesterday, actually. He said he's never doing it again, but there you go.
Give him a round of applause. Send that over. Well, Kevin's just dropped a comment saying he's obviously listened to people train talk about the body, but never their mind. So my recommendation, Kevin, link up with Ric. His contact details are in this post, and of course we will give you a reminder as we hit the end, because that's all he talks about is mindset and performance mindset, and of course being healthy. So last one for you, DJG, how far should you push yourself?
That's it. That's an open question. That's a ball, kind of how long's a ball of string question. We've got to, like I mentioned before, the principle of swimming. Okay, there's no growth in comfort. You've got to push yourself out of your comfort zones, whether that's in your career, whether that's in your body, your business, whatever. So we've always got to go outside of our comfort zones. That said, if we revert back to the good old tried and trusted SMART principles, that have been around for a lot longer than I have, we've got to be realistic. If somebody can't swim and we throw them into the deep end, it will not help. Okay?
Fear. Yeah,
all it will do is create fear, anxiety, and it will lead to a freeze panic mechanism. You will simply stop and then never move, probably never have another attempt at that. So, like anything, progression should be gradual and it should be steady. So, but it also as well, I'm sorry, and it's important I say this, it should be based on where you're at as well. So if you've never run before, going out and on your first run, if you can run for 2 minutes or even 1 minute, that is progress. And then the next time you run, day or two later, whatever, just aim for a very, very, a 2%, a 5% increase, because progress is progress. The key is you just try to push yourself hard once, really hard once. I think you're going to find yourself unsuccessful. The key is repetition, steady progress, pushing yourself gradually, but doing it repeatedly and having the discipline. So instead of running once a month, to run twice a week, 3 times a week, and just make those small steps. And what you'll find is a month later, those small steps have climbed you up a ladder.
It's exactly how I went in the army.
There we go.
A daily mile run before I did anything, 5 a.m. out for a mile. Yeah. The test runs 1.5 miles. I just went, my legs are going to be conditioned. That's it.
Yeah. If you've never run a mile before, start off with point 1, start off with point 2.
My first run was, this will make you laugh, and this is exactly what it was. I did a sports relief challenge, and they went, you've got to do 1 kilometer on the treadmill as part, like you have to do different things. I hadn't run for years. I hadn't run since I played hockey at school, and I went and did this kilometer, and I had a trainer like pushing me through it. And after that, I went, you can do it, you know. And it was intervals, it was, you know, all this, and then I got to the point of doing 8, 10, even a half marathon.
So what you've just said there, Liz, is trust again, isn't it? It's self-belief. And you can obliterate self-belief by pushing yourself way too hard too soon.
Mm-hmm.
That said, you should push yourself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And self-belief, it's a turning wheel. It steadily starts to gather pace the more you do. You know, confidence is gained through preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you don't prepare and then just absolutely throw yourself into something, you massively increase the chances of, you know, it being unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. And therefore, what's the opposite of confidence?
Yeah.
You know, a lack of confidence,
yeah.
Fear, anxiety.
Exactly. And that is a fantastic point to finish. Fear, leave fear behind. Okay, Ric. So the best way to contact you, it's ricmoylan.co.uk is your website. You are on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. If anyone can't find you, the comments, they are in the comments. They are on the post. Or just message me and I will send you straight to Ric. And he does a fantastic podcast himself where he does talk about all things straight talking, but also mindset, and also how you can be your peak performance in anything. And I mean anything that you do. So Ric, thank you so much for joining the conversation, the inspiration, and obviously answering all the questions.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you to all those who listened. Happy Friday to everybody and have a